Group policy is certainly one of those topics that you can expect to see on the exam in a number of different forms. And so in this video that's entitled Group Policy Basics, I want to go through group policy very fundamentally, just trigger some things, give you some little reminders of some things you need to keep in mind on these questions on the exam. And I'll stress it here, just like all the other technologies. If group policy is not something you deal with a lot, if it's a totally new concept to you, then you need to read a little bit about it before you go take this exam. Get out there on TechNet, get in a good Microsoft Press book and read about it, and also get a little bit of hands-on with it, okay? Group policy is a functionality that was designed to simplify network administration. What it really is a set of rules that we configure in a central location, and then we can apply them to different parts of the network automatically. Now, admins can configure user and computer settings in a named collection, and that named collection is what we know as a group policy object. And once I create a group of settings in a group policy object, I can then apply that entire object and all those policies at once automatically to certain objects throughout the organization. Now, what can I do using group policy? I can configure security policies for account lockouts, passwords, etc. I can lock down desktop configurations so that users can't make a career out of right-clicking and customizing their desktop and colors and that sort of thing. I can hide the run bar from people. I can define log on, log off, shutdown, startup scripts, all kinds of things, including redirecting folders to centrally managed network shares so the users save files into My Documents or whatever, and it's actually being redirected out to a network share. I can also maintain Internet Explorer and configure standard settings there so that we're all on the same page. Now, there are two types of group policies. There's a local group policy that is stored locally on individual computers, and it only applies to that individual computer. Then there's Active Directory group policy, and this is the one they're going to concentrate on the exam. This is stored in the sysvol folder on the domain controllers, and if you know anything about the sysvol folder, the system volume folder, that means that it's going to be automatically replicated. It's going to be picked up by DFS and all that stuff, and it's going to be automatically replicated to all the other domain controllers in the domain. This is a collection of settings, again, represented as a group policy object. And these group policy objects, or GPOs, the way you'll see them and hear them most of the time in the real world, can be linked or assigned to sites, domains, and organizational units. Now, if we link it to a site, every computer or user or whatever is in that site is going to get whatever group policy has been linked to the site. If you link it to a domain, anybody who's a member of that domain is going to pick up whatever settings that group policy object is setting. Same thing for organizational units. Now, two group policy objects are created every time you create a new domain. When you create that first domain controller that creates a new domain, there is a default domain controllers policy, GPO, created. This applies to all the domain controllers in the domain as long as they are members of the domain controllers OU. Now, if you move them out of that OU, they lose the settings that that group policy object has applied to that domain controller's OU. There's also a default domain policy GPO, and this is a GPO that's linked to the domain, and so everybody in that domain picks up those settings. Now, group policy is managed using the Group Policy Management Console, the GPMC. This is added as a feature using Server Manager. Now, group policy settings, this is very important. Make sure you remember this point, are applied in two locations. They're kind of split out into a user section, and these settings are applied when the user logs on, and these settings can be different for different users. And then there's a computer section of a group policy object, and these settings are applied to the computer when it starts up. And these settings are applied on a computer basis regardless of who the user is. So group policy has a whole lot going on. There's a lot of power here, and it requires a lot of planning. But as we step through the next few videos here, I want to talk about different configurations on group policies, different little conveniences that Microsoft's built into group policies in Windows Server 2012, and help you prepare for those items on the exam.